In 2026, we have woken up in a world where the old rules of globalization no longer apply. For decades, the global market was built around one simple idea: produce wherever it is cheapest, transport goods through the fastest route, and sell them to the largest possible market. Politics mattered, of course, but for most corporations, economic efficiency always came first. That model is no longer enough. Today, the global economy is undergoing one of the most significant economic realignments since the end of the Cold War. It has not collapsed, as many predicted, but it has become more fragmented, more political, and much more expensive. While some nations are slowly losing their industrial foundations, others are turning this chaos into their greatest advantage. But who has actually emerged stronger from this storm? And who only appears to have survived because the full cost has not yet arrived? Today, we will examine the new economic map of 2026. The first critical point to understand is that globalization did not end. It became political. Companies still seek cheap labor and low taxes, but they now ask new, vital questions. Could this supplier be sanctioned? Could a shipping route be blocked? Could a government suddenly prohibit the export of critical technology? Today, being the cheapest no longer means being the safest. Resilience has replaced efficiency as the new global priority. This is exactly why the United States remains one of the countries best positioned to withstand this transformation. America still controls the world's most important currency, possesses the deepest financial markets, vast energy resources, and a technological lead strengthened by the artificial intelligence boom. However, American survival comes with a price: to reduce dependence on foreign manufacturing, especially in strategic industries. Washington is using massive subsidies, tariffs, and restrictions. These higher costs contribute to inflationary pressure, while decisions by the Federal Reserve continue to shape financial conditions across the world. America is becoming more secure, but not necessarily more efficient. It is buying its economic security with higher costs. China, meanwhile, has not collapsed despite years of dire predictions. While Beijing faces serious structural problems, a weak property sector, demographic decline, and growing debt, it possesses something few other countries can match: industrial depth. China is not simply a country with many factories. It possesses an interconnected ecosystem of suppliers, engineers, ports, component producers, and industrial infrastructure that cannot be recreated quickly. Replacing China's capacity is a process of decades, not years. However, Beijing is changing its model. Recognizing that unrestricted access to Western markets can no longer be taken for granted, China is expanding trade with Southeast Asia, the Middle East, and Latin America, attempting to become the industrial center of a much larger, Chinese-oriented economic network. India may be the clearest example of strategic flexibility. It has the population, the market, and a position that allows it to cooperate simultaneously with the United States, Russia, China, Europe, and the Gulf states. Yet India is still far from replacing China as the world's factory. Infrastructure remains uneven, and bureaucracy can be a significant hurdle. For India, 2026 is a year of immense opportunity, but the challenge is transforming that potential into actual industrial capacity that can compete on a global scale. The quieter winners are found in Southeast Asia. Countries like Vietnam, Malaysia, and Indonesia have benefited from the redistribution of manufacturing. However, we must be careful with our assessment. In many cases, these nations are becoming an extension of the Chinese production system, acting as assembly hubs for Chinese components before they are exported to the West. The winner here is not a single national economy, but a redesigned Asian manufacturing network that is more complex and less transparent than before. We see a different kind of success in the Persian Gulf. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Qatar have understood that oil and gas revenues will not guarantee influence forever. They are using their energy income for active diversification, investing heavily in AI, logistics, aviation, and tourism. They sell energy to Asia, maintain security partnerships with Washington, attract Chinese technology, and position their cities as global centers of finance. Their strategy is not neutrality in the traditional sense. It is the conversion of energy wealth into lasting economic and political influence. In the current system, this flexibility is a potent form of power. Europe, however, presents a more complicated picture. The European Union remains institutionally strong, but it is losing economic momentum. With expensive energy, an aging population, and heavy regulation, Europe faces a risk of gradual industrial decline. New industrial investment increasingly follows cheaper energy, larger subsidies, and faster decision-making, and Europe often struggles to offer all three. The danger is not a sudden crash, but a slow move toward the periphery, leaving Europe wealthy and stable but less central to the global economic engine. Russia serves as an example of the difference between survival and success. The Russian economy did not collapse under sanctions as Moscow reorganized much of its economy around the war and redirected exports to the east. But the cost is enormous. While massive military spending increases GDP, producing missiles does not create long-term civilian prosperity. The state can temporarily sustain demand through public expenditure, but it cannot indefinitely replace lost technology, private investment, skilled labor, and access to high-value markets. Russia has survived as a war economy, but has weakened its foundations as an independent global economic center. Russia's growing isolation has also increased the value of countries that can offer alternatives to traditional routes through its territory. This brings us to a broader group of regional powers: Turkey, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, and others, who are avoiding a final choice between major blocs. Their geography has become more valuable because global trade now requires backup routes. Disruptions affecting the Red Sea, the Black Sea region, and traditional routes through Russia have increased demand for alternative corridors across the South Caucasus and Central Asia. But geography alone is not enough. A transit country must offer more than just a path for containers. It must become a hub for processing, finance, and logistics. Otherwise, it only receives a small fee while others capture the real value of the trade. So, who truly survived the economic shift of 2026? To answer that question, we must distinguish between survival and victory. Some countries merely absorbed the shock. Others used it to improve their position. The winners are not necessarily those with the largest economies or the most resources. The real winners are those who created alternatives. Alternative markets, alternative routes, alternative suppliers, and alternative partnerships. The old global economy rewarded maximum efficiency. The new economy rewards the ability to survive disruption. But diversification is not the same as independence. A country that replaces dependence on the West with dependence on China, or dependence on Russia with dependence on another power, has not escaped the vulnerabilities of the old system. So the real question is this: which countries are genuinely reducing their vulnerability and which are simply replacing one dependency with another? Thank you for watching. Take care, and I will see you in the next analysis.